Hello, biotechnology, molecular biology, and microbiology lab students. My name is Lucas D. Oliveira, and I wanted to make a quick video introducing myself because I am a peer tutor at the IRSC, and of the classes that I've listed, I've taken in the past, and while I was taking them, I compiled some useful, in my opinion, resources that might be of help to you throughout your semester. So if you're in any of those classes, I just wanted to show you what I have available and give you pointers on how best I think you can use them. So the first thing that I wanted to show you were the Quizlet sets that I've created. Here are all of the different classes that I have on my profile. The oldest ones are from botany and genetics, but they're pretty comprehensive for those courses. Though I just made them for myself at that point, I wasn't sharing them much. However, they are over the complete class, so they are useful if you're in those classes. But once I started making them with other people in mind, I have the Biotech 1 and Molecular Bio Quizlets. The Molecular Bio one being the most complete out of all my sets, where I have all of the chapters. And at a certain point, I got Quizlet Plus and started putting images from the PowerPoints in, so you have a pretty good one-to-one comparison of the PowerPoints to the flashcards here. And the flashcards are essentially just a more condensed and memorizable format to remember all the information by. But her PowerPoints are pretty comprehensive in themselves. For the Biotech 1 set, I stopped at Chapter 8, which I believe is after the third exam. So it's an incomplete set as it doesn't have all the chapters. However, of the ones that are here, they're pretty useful. So to kind of give an example of how you would use the ones for biotech, but this kind of applies to all of the sets, the method that I recommend using is, let's say you have your first biotech exam, so it's over the first 3 chapters, I believe. On 4 days before your exam, I would get to the first Quizlet and begin drilling the flashcards. You've probably used Quizlet before, but if you are able to predict what's on the opposite side of the card, then move on. And if there's something that is difficult for you to remember, just give a star on it. And when you get to the end of the set, it'll have your star terms marked. Then I would recommend repeating the set of just the starred terms another 2 times that day. And hopefully by the end, you'll have reduced your starred terms by a good bit. And then I would say just hold off on studying the rest of that chapter for then. You might have 10 to 15 starred terms, maybe 20, depending on how much you were able to pick up the terms. But after you do that, just give up for the day and move on. The next day you do with Chapter 2, and the next day with Chapter 3. And then on the day right before your exam, I would go back into each chapter and then just study the starred terms that you weren't able to pick up with complete confidence. And if you do this, it makes it so that the easiest to remember stuff you studied longer ago, and the more difficult stuff you studied more recently. That way, after you kind of drill repetitively these more difficult terms, and it's also more recent to the exam, you'll have a better chance of remembering it. So that's the method that I used. However, usually it was more so I started doing this 3 days before the exam and then would wake up really, really early and do that last day stuff on the morning of. However, I don't recommend doing that 4 days. Give yourself an extra day per number of chapters. That would be really good. But yeah, I find that to be a good way to use these Quizlet sets. For microbiology, something I want to point out, I started off doing the class slides for lecture, but at a certain point I kind of realized that her PowerPoints were enough and the Quizlets weren't as necessary. However, for the practicals, I have my first lab practical study guide here on Quizlet that is pretty useful, I would recommend, as well as the bacteria slide that you can use to remember and recognize if you see a slide of the bacteria in lab, you'll be able to name it and recognize it. However, after the first practical, I kind of realized that the study guides would be in better form in just Word documents. So I have this Google Drive here, which I'll provide a link where you can access, and you have the full study guides for the second and third practical. And they're pretty robust, so I would say if you study these, you'll be pretty golden for the practical. And that's about it. Those are the resources that I have compiled. If you're studying GRE, I have some GRE stuff. If you're going to study BASE, I have a few PowerPoints for that as well. Feel free to explore all this stuff. I think there's some juicy tidbits in here that'll really help you throughout your semester. So best of luck.